Dave, can you hear us?
He's supposed to be.
Now, can we hear you?
Yes, I can hear you, Tim.
All right, awesome. Everything's working, Brett.
Fantastic. All right, let's call to order a meeting of the Finance Committee. It is Tuesday, June 25th. We have a quorum present, and we are certified and compliant with open meetings laws. I don't see anybody sitting out in the public, and I don't think anybody online, so we can roll straight into communications, and we've got Andrea Jansen from Baker Tilly up first, I believe.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
We can.
Very good. Will it be okay if I share my screen, or then I can drive, or would you prefer?
Go ahead, you should be able to share now.
All right.
You've obviously seen me drive before.
It's just usually easier this way. Can you see the financial statements up on the screen? Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Very good. All right. Well, thanks for your time this evening, and thanks for letting me join you via Zoom tonight. My name is Andrea Jansen with Baker Tilly. I'm the principal in charge of the city's audit. My plan is to make just a couple high-level comments on the formal audit report here before we get into the numbers in the 2023 financial highlights handout. So the first formal report that we're going to look at here is the financial statements, and really focus on the independent auditor's report, or the opinion. So we were able to issue an unmodified opinion again this year, which is great news. That is the highest level of assurance that we're able to give, and sometimes more commonly referred to as a clean opinion. So one thing that I did want to point out for this year is that there was an emphasis of matter for a new accounting standard that was implemented related to some changes in the fire pension trust. So if you were to compare this year's statements to last year's statements, you will see changes to the financial statement schedules and additional disclosures as a result of that change. We also evaluated GASB 96, which is a new accounting standard that was effective for the 2023 reporting period, but determined that to be immaterial. So you won't see that in the opinion or the financial statements themselves. The next formal report that we issue related to the audit is the reporting and insights document. So I've got that pulled up here on the screen. This document, if you're not as familiar with it, is largely made up of required communications. And again, if you've reviewed this in the past year or so, what you'll find in this year's report will look very similar to you, very familiar to you. If you're not as familiar with this document, I would encourage you to review it. It does include a lot of information about, the scope of our audit and some terminology that we use, so it can provide some context to the work that we're doing. One area that I do like to cover here is the internal control matters section of this report on pages 6 and 7 of the report. There are a couple of items to note related to segregation of duties, where one person has the ability to sort of complete a transaction cycle and make adjustments without approval. These are items that you wouldn't require. We wouldn't require that you fix them. They're just areas that could be of higher risk, so something that you should be aware of. The other item that we're reporting a material weakness over is over financial reporting. I would say this is very, very common with governments your size. We do prepare your financial statements, and we noted just a couple of material adjustments during the work that we were doing. So again, nothing that you need to correct or remedy here, but because we are aware of this, we are required to report this to you. Without sort of paging through this document, a couple of other highlights, things that may be of interest to you. There is a link to our website for other topics outside of the audit that may be of interest. Those are geared towards those charged with governance, so feel free to check that out. And the last section of the report is entitled Two-Way Audit Communication, really more geared toward the 2024 audit. So if there are matters that come to your attention during the year, do feel free to reach out to any one of us on the city's audit team. Our contact information is within the report as well. So we'd love to hear from you if you've got questions or just things that you want to discuss. And then moving into the financial highlights for the year. So we will start with the general fund. And as a reminder, this is your primary operating fund of the city. And fund balance is your equity. It's what's left over when you, in simplified terms, take the assets minus the liabilities. This chart shows your total 2023 fund balance in blue compared to 2022. You can see a slight decrease from 2022 in total fund balance. If we take a look at this chart, kind of starting from the bottom, working our way up, non-spendable fund balance of about 1.5 million, really similar to last year, largely made up of advances to TIF funds and EMS. So because those funds are tied up in those advances, they're not available for spending on current bills of the city. Your restricted fund balance of just under 127,000, primarily for senior center activities as a result of a donation. Assigned fund balance just over 1 million. As a reminder, assigned fund balance is fund balance that's earmarked for a specific purpose, but should you choose to change those assignments, you're able to do that. This is mostly made up of future retirement benefit amounts and budget carryovers. And that leaves you with just over $4.3 million in unassigned fund balance, which is not earmarked for any specific purpose. We will look at that a little bit more in the next page. But before we get there, like take a look at how we got to the change in fund balance. So below the chart, we've got the summarized income statement for the general fund. I like to start actually in the middle here with your final budget. So you had a planned net loss of about $569,000 for the general fund for 2023. And so your actual net loss of just under $217,000 is better than what you had planned. And when we look at the variance on the revenue side, I would say the biggest driver of that positive variance is investment income was up during 2023, which is consistent with what we're seeing across a lot of the municipalities that we work with. And then I would say on the expenditure side, really very close to your final budget, nothing significant to call out here. But if you wanted to see the details of kind of the ins and outs there, you would want to look at the financial statements, page 73. So moving to the next page here, still talking about the general fund, still talking about fund balance. We are looking at that unassigned general fund balance. And so that's the fund balance that isn't earmarked for any specific purpose. And we're comparing that to the general fund expenditures for a percentage of just shy of 40% at year end, which is down slightly from last year. But we've also got mapped out here your policy range, which is between 20 and 25% of the budgeted general fund expenditures. And then we've also got mapped out here on the blue dot some reference values for municipalities in Wisconsin that we work with. Population ranges 10,000 to 17,500, just for a little bit of context. And so you can see that while you're above policy, you're right in line with some of those comparative metrics. So very, very healthy fund balance, which is good. If you wanted to consider additional assignments, you could bring down that percentage back below or within your policy range. Alternatively, if you feel like long-term this level of reserve is more in line with where you want to be, you could consider revisiting your policy as well. So changing gears here, we are next looking at your general obligation debt. We've got a couple things mapped out on this chart here. The top line in black is your state statutory debt limit. So as a reminder, that is 5% of your equalized value. The city has a slightly more restrictive policy at 4% of your equalized value. And then your actual general obligation debt is mapped out there in red. So just over $38.6 million at the end of 2023. We do like to see this black line trending upwards, means your equalized values are increasing. So that is good news. Your general obligation debt outstanding did increase slightly from 2022, but the margin here is growing, which is good news. And then below the chart, we've got some additional information. So of that $38.6 million in total general obligation debt, about $2.7 million of that relates to utility funds. And then we've got revenue debt listed of about $7.8 million for utility funds. As a reminder, that is not included in the chart above because it will not be repaid with tax levy. And if you're interested in more data, I include this link. It's got a whole bunch of different data and metrics that you can compare across Wisconsin. So it's a nice tool if you're into data and comparison. And then lastly here, we are still talking about debt, but we're talking about what you're spending on debt in those governmental funds. So we are taking the principal and interest costs and comparing those to your non-capital expenditures of the governmental funds. You can see that ratio is at 22.5% for 2023, which is down from 2022. Right in line, we've got some more comparative metrics here mapped out in the black dot. So right in line with your peer group and relatively stable, I would say, over the last couple of years. So that is good. In real dollars, your actual principal and interest costs were up slightly from 2022, but again, percentage-wise, you were down a little bit from last year. Before I open it up for questions, just want to make sure to thank Dave and the city's finance team for their help with the audit process. We know it's not a small undertaking, so especially when you've got large changes like we did with fire pension. So appreciate his help and happy to answer any questions.
All right, anybody? That was it's a long report. There's lots of numbers and charts and graphs and everything in there. Anybody have any initial thoughts on that? Pat?
The new guy has a question. So on the fund balance policy, knowing nothing about it, it seems like the policy minimum and maximum are relatively narrow range. And then when I'm looking at what you have as the reference to the median, where, as you said, right in line. Do you have any data, and maybe it's in the packets or online where we can look, to compare what the policies are for other cities, relative size?
I don't have metrics pulled together for what that would look like. I've also heard some bond rating agencies targeting 30% as a minimum number. So that would be something, to consult with your financial advisor. If that's something that maybe you want to factor into your policy as well. I would say really since COVID, these reserve balances have been increasing for many municipalities. Just knowing that there's a lot of things that can be impacted in a huge way by things that you simply can't predict. So even if I had data, I guess, on current policies, I'm not sure that it would reflect, I guess, where people are actually sitting.
Okay. Thank you.
And I think at least historically, we've always kind of looked at that and said, maybe we should do something about it. But I think we probably should add it as a future agenda item, that maybe we just revisit that policy range in there. And again, maybe put it a little bit closer to what that median value is, so it doesn't look like it's, like we're sitting on a Scrooge McDuck vault of cash somewhere or something like that. We just, at least, if we're not going to try and spend it down, then let's at least adjust what the limits are that we're going to do. So we'd be a little closer in line. But I think we can look at that in the future. Andrea, are there any things that were within this report that you feel would either positively or negatively affect either our credit rating or anything that auditors may be looking for?
Nothing stands out to me as being unusual or something that I should draw your attention to. The information that we pulled together, the metrics that we looked at, most of them are, relatively stable year over year, or are, I would say, moving in a positive direction, trending in a positive direction. So nothing concerning.
Okay, I see. I mean, I'm taking that steady is the better thing. Steady and stable is always a good thing audit wise, I assume.
Correct.
Got it. Anybody else have any other questions? Nicole Marie, how did it look looking at the audit report?
Yeah, no questions here.
All right, because you're probably some of the freshest set of eyes to be looking at it. All right. If you don't have any other things to present, Andrea, then I don't think anybody else has any questions here.
right.
Thank you for that presentation. I guess we'll see you in the next meeting thereafter.
Sounds great. And it's the same link as this one, correct?
Yep.
Yes. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thanks. All right. Next up is that the departmental revenue and expenditure email. I don't know if Dave, if you wanted to say anything to that. It was pretty straightforward what it is, but
There, I'm unmuted. No, nothing really to highlight, just the fact that we sent it out and it's informational only to you.
okay. How did the how have you found the compliance for getting the monthly expenditures and that?
Compliance in regards to having the oversight committees looking at it.
Yeah, and getting the information that you need timely wise.
Well, we actually run the reports out of our general ledger package, but at this point I have not looked at any agendas to verify whether it's being parlayed out to the various oversight committees yet.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
You're welcome.
All right. Then we've got next is Moody's Investor Services credit rating report letter.
That is, Moody's has given us the same rating as in the past, the AA2. They have indicated that there is some upward pressure that we could potentially move to AA1 with the next rating. We're anticipating having Moody's come out for a tour of the city before our next rating call to see if we can advertise a little bit more for it. But the only insight that Moody's gave us is that they'd like to see us have the TIDs be in a stronger situation that the general fund wasn't loaning them so much money. So I've got something on the next agenda that I'll be discussing that matter in more detail.
All right, that's good. At least they kind of gave us a little bit of a roadmap to maybe achieving that little bit better rating. Does that make to go from a 2 to 1, is that pretty significant as far as interest rates and that?
It would be roughly 5 to 10 basis points, which isn't a lot, but we're anticipating next year's bond issue to be roughly the 12 to 13 million again. So when you're talking those kind of dollar amounts, it would be substantial.
Okay. All right, well, we will look forward to that one in the next meeting, talking about that a little bit more. Anybody have any questions on the presentations or anything so far? All right, then I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the June 11th meeting. Motion by Greg. Is there a second?
Second. Either one.
Yep, take your pick. Any questions or edits on the minutes? All right, hearing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
And are any opposed? All right, minutes are accepted. Next bit up is the resolution for a memorandum of understanding on the ARPA revolving loan program.
Bottom line, the RDA and WIBIC have been operating under a memorandum of understanding from back in 2013. And so because the city now added a ARPA revolving loan program, we needed to get the memorandum of understanding updated. So this has actually been reviewed by the city attorney also.
I have nothing to add.
The was this a 1-year MOU or was it 2?
It's actually ongoing.
Oh, ongoing, okay. Do we have to, if we're redoing this now, do we have to do anything regularly to reaffirm this memorandum, or?
Let's see.
So it's basically just you can get out of it pretty easily.
Yeah.
So it's just sort of a standing document that will govern the relationship between the parties. It's not a very complicated relationship, I guess. So, we could do a term in there if that's something the city's more comfortable with.
Right now, it's set up to automatically renew
Yeah.
for an additional year unless we give a 60-day written notice.
All right, so effectively we've got 2-ish years and then we've got to think about it, or?
Yes.
That's what I thought I was reading out of
Yeah.
it, but,
Yeah.
okay. And I mean, I think that's fair enough to review agreements every other year. Lisa?
The only comment I had, which it probably wouldn't matter to WIBIC, but I still think it's worth a conversation at some point about if we're running low on funds, whether or not we want to continue to allow businesses within the city of Stoughton to apply for both loans, 100,000, if that means others might not get funds. So I don't know if that's needs to be a part of this discussion necessarily. I assume that could just be, changed on a policy level. It's less about WIBIC, I presume, than what the city wants to do, but maybe for a future conversation, if we're running low on money and it means more people could get funds, and maybe it's worth reconsidering. But
Yeah, I think that would be more of a policy level decision for the city. I believe WIBIC is just, they're underwriting the loans.
Yeah.
So if you're deciding that you want to change sort of the parameters of the program, that's something you can do without notifying WIBIC or having to change the arrangement with them.
That's good, thank you.
Yeah, I think the other thing you would highlight in here is that we did look at raising the interest rates from 3% to 5%. And then WIBIC gets a fee out of that. And our intent would be to contract with Becker Professional Services to help with the application process from the businesses. We've had several of them that started but didn't finish the applications. So I think it would be beneficial to have them help those businesses as well as help us with communication so we know how much funds are available and where they're going. We can get more regular reports internally, I'm going to call it, than we would externally from WIBIC. And then, we'd have a check and balance there as well. The other thing, we could do is, I guess my question would be is, Dave, as far as the funds, I mean, this is the city and the RDA. I don't know if there's really a controlling body, but is it split up? So is the RDA responsible for the downtown and the city for outside the downtown, or is the RDA assuming responsibility for all of it?
When the city set up the ARPA fund, they did not indicate that the RDA would be involved. So absent any further instruction from the city, they are two separate funds where the RDA deals with the original revolving loan program for downtown, and the city deals with the ARPA funds.
So I'm going to suggest if we do create a policy, we might just want to clarify that in the policy.
Okay.
I think that's reasonable. At least then everybody knows where they stand with it. Does anybody have any other questions on the loan program? If none, I'll entertain a motion to recommend this to council.
So moved.
Is there a second? Greg, second. Any other questions on the resolution? All right, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
And any opposed? Okay, we'll recommend that renewal of that MOU. All right, next is a resolution to amend the 2024 adopted budget, racetrack park trail maintenance.
The Public Works Department has indicated that they are anticipating a surplus of about $118,000 on the Virgin Lake Trail projects as compared to budget. So they wanted to use those funds to repair significant damage at Racetrack Park. And so they requested, and I drafted the resolution.
Anybody that's on, Patrick, do you know about the what damage was on the trails out there?
Vaguely, they were talking about some washouts.
Oh, okay, that makes
So,
sense.
and apparently it's an area that neighbors have discussed frequently.
Okay, fair enough. Nice that they had a surplus, and especially that they did a pretty nice job on the Virgin Lake Trail extension. So those look good. I see them getting pretty heavy use. So, does anybody have any questions about this? So just moving the surplus from that project over to funding a different project. So essentially no financial impact. All right. If none, I'll entertain a motion to recommend this one to council.
So moved.
Motion by Patrick, second. Greg? Okay, second by Greg. Any other questions on this resolution? All right, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? All right, we'll recommend that one up to council. Next resolution is one for reduction of the letter of credit with RHD Properties LLC for the 51 West development.
Shortly before Rodney left, he had laid out a timeline for the remaining letter of credit for the 313,000, and RHD Properties has achieved the first section of it by planting trees and reseeding park areas. And so they've requested a reduction in the letter of credit for that. And Chris, as our new planning director, has gone through this and concurs with the decision.
All right, and this is in Dvorak's one. I was getting this one confused with the Grosso Properties because we do that letter of credit reduction with them all the time. But yeah, this is nothing different than other letters of credit that we've reduced over time. Does anybody have any questions or thoughts on this?
I have just kind of a comment. So this is one that is part of developers agreements. So in essence, this body and the city council's already approved it. So it's a little redundant. So one of the things we might talk about going forward is whether or not we really even need an approval to release the money that we're contractually obligated to release. So we've talked about that internally.
Yes, so in other communities I work with, it's sort of just a staff level decision. So either the engineer or planning director or the mayor is sort of like the designee, and once they check all the boxes, they just have the unilateral authority under the agreement to reduce it. So that's a framework that we've done in other communities. Because like the mayor said, it's all sort of spelled out in the agreement what you have to do to get the reduction. So that might be worth a conversation in the future just to streamline the process.
Yeah, I mean, I think that completely makes sense.
So would that be a change just in ongoing development agreements and not ordinance or anything like that?
Correct. It's all governed by the agreement. So just wanted to, I guess, provide a heads up just so it doesn't come out of left field.
Now, would this be a discussion that we would have to have in this committee, planning? Which committee would field this? Planning, I would think, but
That was my gut, was planning. I think either this committee or planning could do it.
Doesn't really matter to us. At the end of the day, the council is going to approve the developers agreement.
Yep.
So it's going to get there one way or another. So you guys can think about it and let us know. It doesn't have to be right now, but we want to at least give you a heads up. We
Okay.
don't just want to say, okay, we're going to do this, but we're always looking for ways to streamline it. And I know developers would appreciate it too, because then they don't have to wait for the approval process.
right. Okay, nope, that all makes sense. Maybe something to begin at plan, because that's where we craft the whole developers agreement and then approve it there and then pass it through here, and then we're done with it after that. So
Works for us.
it'll take a couple of meetings, but it'll take less time than what they have to go through for this. So okay. Any other questions on that, or on at least this resolution that we have to go through? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
All right, motion by Lisa. Is there a second? Second by Ozzy. Any other questions? All right, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
And are any opposed? All right, we'll recommend that to council. Next items that we have up are with a potential for closed session, state statute 19.85. How do we want to start this out, Rick?
I think it makes sense just to go to closed session right away. There's just a couple of terms that we're looking for feedback on
Okay.
and how to move forward.
Okay. All right. Then we'll need a motion to go into closed session.
I can make the motion to go into closed session. Oops, I just kicked out. Anybody want to finish reading it or wait
Sure.
for me?
There you
Oh, thank you. Per state statute 19.85, parent 1, parent E, deliberating or trying to do two things at once. Deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. The Finance Committee may reconvene in open session to discuss and take action on the subject matter discussed in the closed session, and I so move.
All right. Second by Ozzy. Then we will have to go on a roll vote on this one. So, Patrick?
Aye.
Tanya? Greg? Lisa?
Aye.
Ozzy? I myself. All right. We'll start up closed session as soon as we get everything sectioned off here. So.